The Fact Check podcast is hosted by 3 rehab professionals with decades of combined experience. But I'm not one of them. I'm just making this intro. If you are finding the world of health and musculoskeletal care confusing and contradicting, and let's be honest, at times a bit crazy, our efforts here are aimed against all that misinformation through real research and real evidence. Let's do this, people. Nothing you hear on this podcast should be considered medical advice.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Fact Check podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Leveillé, and I have my co-host here,
Elliot Sierra, aka the Rehab Cairo.
And today we have a really cool guest. We wanted to have him for a long time. JPGCoaching. He's very busy, so it's hard to make this happen. And I guess this is the time, even though we talk quite regularly, I don't even know. I was like, what the hell is his name? Is it like John Paul George? But I think it's JP Gallardo. Is that it?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I go by JP. So you can just call me that. You can remove the G coaching from there.
Drop the Facebook. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But that is like my initials. People are always like, oh, I don't know your name. Like, you kind of do.
Yeah,
That's funny.
Makes sense. All right, so we'll start the episode by reacting to a clip, probably. But before that, can you tell us a little bit about what you do online, like what you're known for? And by the way, the people I was just on a hike with, they were like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy." He's like, "Oh, he trains my friend." I was like, "Oh yeah, okay."
Sick.
It's kind of
Wait,
a
do you
big
know who
deal.
it is?
Yeah. So yeah, let us know. Like, how did
Do
you
know
get
what
into all
friend-
this?
What friend I train?
I don't know his name. It was a friend of a friend, but it was
Probably like, client confidentiality, etc.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I basically post just general fitness content, I would call it, mostly specializing in hypertrophy-based content. I do a mix of gen pop, bodybuilding, things I think would be interesting to people. I wouldn't say I kind of focus on any one thing when it comes to fitness content, just really whatever my brain comes up with that week or that day, content-wise, that I think would be useful to most people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I quite like your content. You're one of the. I was talking about this with Angus Bradley recently. It's like it's hard to strike that balance, and like you're not sharing like dog shit misinformation and having very captivating content. And I think you strike a really good balance between the two.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
I'd say Eugene T was good as well at this.
Thank you.
Yeah, Elliot, are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get into questions. So, Elliot, do you want to open up? You had good questions, and I had dumb ones.
Yeah, sure. All right. So I think a lot of people would like to know, and a lot of people ask me this as well. I've done online coaching for a little bit now. I've been a coach since I've been 18, and then I made the transition from in-person stuff to online pretty much as soon as I made my social media platform. And a lot of people ask me, what does your day like actually look like? Like, what do you do besides scroll on Instagram and TikTok infinitely? So I want to reflect that question back to you. What's your day-to-day sort of operations look like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep?
Gotcha. So my day's pretty boring. I used to have a lot more one-on-one clients before social media, because now I have like a team-based subscription, which is much less time consuming. I still keep a good amount of online clients, like 10, 15, which take up, my time as well. But I would say first thing I do, aside from all like the morning bathroom breaks and stuff like that, like just online coaching stuff, emails, just checking to see, if somebody hit me up for coaching, if a client needs something. And then checking to see if I have any new clients, because I have a couple of assistant coaches. So seeing if they have any, responses on their intake forms and stuff like that. And then from there, it's basically trying to figure out what I'm going to do content-wise that day. Usually I have, 2, 3, 4 ideas that I have lined up for the next couple of days. And then it's just deciding what I want to post from there. So I might edit for, say, an hour a day or two. And then I do try and do something educational, like just for myself, on a daily basis. So right now I'm working through, I don't know if you know who it is, Tom Purvis. You probably heard of him at least. But he has some online courses that I'm going through right now. So I try and do that for at least an hour a day or so, or read something educational just so I feel like I'm not stagnant, as a coach. And then gym time, which is usually more time to film content, which kind of sucks. So I try to have some gym days, that aren't content days too. I've gotten a lot better about that, but it used to be filming every single time I went to the gym, and I would feel unaccomplished if I didn't film like one or two videos that day. But now it's nice because I'm getting back to my kind of like meditation in the gym, just lifting for myself. And then when I get home, it's usually more of the same from the morning, like going through emails. And then I have my training team. So I'll usually just be messaging in there. And all that together maybe takes another hour or so. And then if I'm feeling up to it, I'll edit a bit more content. But yeah, after that, I usually try and be like a husband and, all that in between.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Sounds like you got a lot of balance there.
I guess that brings me to my next question, which is a question I was asking people a lot lately. It might reveal like where I am in life. I see a lot of people that have like wives and whatever, and obviously I'm single, ladies. Just kidding. But I'm always wondering if like being in a couple in general, do you feel like it makes you more productive or is just like a worthy distraction? 'Cause obviously family is important, right? But would you find it makes you more productive or less productive, but it's worth it? Like, or and how, if that makes sense?
I think you strike a kind of a balance, if that makes sense, because obviously if I was single, I would have a lot more time to myself. I wouldn't have to worry about, anybody else and giving my time to them. But also like having somebody there that actually supports me helped tremendously because uh, I was basically at a point, like when social media started popping off, right before that, of course, I was taking on any client I could because I came from working, 9 to 5s retail jobs along with coaching just to try and, make ends meet. So anytime I got a new client was a big deal. So of course, as soon as I started getting social media traction, I got more and more people signing on and I was just taking on client after client after client. And so at one point I had maybe 120 one-on-one clients. So essentially from like Monday through Thursday, it was like 10-hour days just doing client check-ins and onboarding new clients. And I feel like if I didn't have my wife there, I probably would have ended up just like essentially killing myself with work and coaching. But I was able to, kind of give myself that perspective and take like 10 steps back and be like, this is not what I need to be doing right now because yeah, I'm making more money. That's cool. But I'm also hating pretty much every day. So I think that, you find a balance with that. And I would say now that I do have that balance in place, like, oh, she absolutely helps me with, everything just because I have a good work-life balance now and having somewhere there, like someone there to emotionally support you that isn't just like a workplace thing, I would say is invaluable. Like, having someone you can actually confide in that sense, right? Not just like from a work standpoint.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I guess it's kind of reassuring because I'm always like, for me, it's dating. I find that it's distracting and makes me unproductive.
Dating is
conversely.
unproductive, I would say.
Yeah.
But once you find the person, it's productive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess it brings me to another question. Elliot has like some issues with his computer right now, so I'll ask the next question. So we've had this discussion before. I find that like your content pivoted, and I'm really trying to find that meme. I don't know if I told you, I made a meme about you, but I've never posted it because I was like, this is dumb and petty.
Please send me the meme.
Yeah, I have to find it. I'll probably put it in on YouTube if I do. Like, I'll show it to you, but I think you'd find it funny. But I feel like your content pivoted like a lot, and then I think that's around like before it was like I stopped. Basically, I was never following you before, and then you followed me, and I checked your content. I was like, wow. Yeah, usually I find it funny when a guy, random guy follows me, but then I check your content. I was like, okay, this is actually good content. Like, what the hell happened since the last time I checked? I think it was a short period too. It was like over a year almost. Could you explain how that happened? Like how you went from, well, to my eyes is like kind of clickbaity content to like mostly like very good evidence-based content. Like what was the change?
Yeah. So I kind of look at it the same way as my online coaching, I guess. Trying to always grow in some way professionally. So I was super new to social media. And when I first started out, of course, like it feels good getting more views, etc. But I really didn't have a good understanding of how to present content like in a nuanced manner. So my intention was always to put out good content that, was going to help people like to the best of my ability. So I just feel like over time that improved and I had a better understanding of like what it meant to actually look at things from different perspectives and present it in a nuanced way, versus just being like, this is what I think is the best. Here's what you should do. And it's really easy to do that, and you see people succeed from doing that all the time. But I didn't want to do something that I now knew wasn't correct, right? Like I would never want to put out information that I knew was wrong. So I guess it was more so ignorance in a sense. And I just learned as I continued posting and realized that, hey, like there's a better way of doing this.
Okay. Would you have any advice for coaches who are afraid of, let's say, make the same mistakes that you made at the beginning, let's say?
Honestly, I think the best way to do it is just to do it. And if you're somebody who really wants to learn, then you will, if that makes sense. Just because like if you're sitting at home and stewing and worrying that what you post isn't good enough, then you're just never going to post. And I feel like I've definitely done that with some of my posts where I will collect a whole bunch of like talking points and evidence. And then I'm like, oh man, I really don't know if this is up to par, and it just never gets posted. And I come back around to it later. I'm just like, fuck, I should have just posted this, dude. Like this would have helped somebody out. So
Yeah.
I think if the intention is there and you're trying, then you're in the right place. You know, you'll get better at it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of how I started. If we get into that a little bit, like, so, because my friend was asking me, like, how did you get started with your page? And I was, I just did it randomly, started posting memes, realized I was good at it. And then I added science to the memes and I realized no one was doing that. And that's kind of how I grew let's say my voice. But I also say, to me, I'll say exactly the same thing you're saying. Like, it's trial and error. And at one point you find a formula that sticks. But also I think it's important to listen to the people. Like, the way I was approaching it is I really didn't want to spread misinformation. So I always assumed that I was wrong. Even when someone has like a completely insane take, I would actually look at the evidence. Sometimes I was like, wow, actually this is crazy, but that person is right. And it made me, and if they were wrong, it would just make me, I just had more content to talk about, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And something I've seen you do that you're good at is if you do find something that, you realize may not be like the whole picture, you'll go back and just make an update post and be like, hey, like I posted this before, but this is actually, there's more evidence like to the contrary or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard, but I think it's worth it, and people kind of respect that as well. Elliot, do you want to ask a question? It's your turn.
Yeah. Are you currently on prep for anything, or is there anything like any competitions in the near future that you are currently preparing for?
I mean, right now, I've kind of shifted goals. So, I mean, I had my pec tear in, I think it was like October last year. But prior to even that happening, after my last competition, I'd already decided to take like 2-3 years off any sort of bodybuilding competition. Mostly just because of how it affects like my lifestyle and relationship as a whole, like with my wife, because it's a very selfish sport. And, I try and be present as best possible. But like when you're getting that lean and you're on that low of calories, my energy is just not there. So it affects like everything in a sense, like people I talk to, like how I feel on a daily basis. I just like I'm in a bad mood. I try to be in a good mood, but, it is what it is. Right. Like, so at this point, I think I'm just going to take the time I need to forget about bodybuilding prep. And right now I'm focusing on just trying to do a marathon at the end of the year. I don't really have like a super specific timeline. I just know that I want to do it. So I've been running like 3 times a week. And I know that doing that is going to help towards that goal. So yeah, that's about it.
Nice. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Personally, anytime I prep for anything, like I'm just even in a caloric deficit right now, I'm kind of an asshole. And I'm like when I'm 500, 600 calorie deficit, and my girlfriend is fantastic and the love of my life and like makes my food for me. And I still find a reason to be an asshole. So I totally feel you there. So that's, I get it totally. And it mitigates how much you can go out and like actually hang out, and socially you can't, eat any of the foods that anyone else is eating. It's kind of weird. It adds a weird air to the ambiance.
It's weird when you show up to the restaurant with Tupperware.
Yeah, very strange looks. One time I showed up to a Filipino restaurant with a weight scale, and the looks that I got were just like, yeah, I shouldn't be here right now, huh?
I was just like, and it's funny now because like you have to go to those extremes for prep, but I used to do shit like that when I was just like a teenager, like in a regular cut. And thinking back, I was like, dude, I could have just ordered the chicken or the steak. Like I didn't have to get, like there's so many workarounds for that aren't insane.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I have a funny paper about this, but I guess I have a question for you both. So I feel like a lot of physios, the stereotype, or doctors, they'll say like I'm a bad patient. Like they'll say like do this, do that, and then they'll smoke and eat like terribly. I find that for bodybuilders or coaches, feels like the opposite, where they're obsessed, they're really hard on their patients or clients rather, but they also are very hard on themselves. Would you say that's generally true? Or because like Elliot, I see you're pretty disciplined, right? But then you ask a lot of discipline for your clients as well. Is that like a common thing? Or
Yeah, I think that for the online like bodybuilding and fitness coach space in particular, you kind of have to have some proof of concept. And the number one proof of concept is yourself. And so your work ethic and your physique is kind of a reflection of your own systems and methods. And so when people see sort of how you look and what you can do in the gym, they naturally, whether you want that to be the case or not, they ascribe that to themselves and basically start to use you as a benchmark and say, okay, this guy looks like that and can't do that, so maybe he's got the secret sauce to help me do that for myself.
that makes sense. I'm still looking for that paper. Hang on, I actually found the paper, so I'll just share it here. It's the paper on eating disorders in amongst bodybuilders. I don't remember the exact figure, but it's something. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's so high. It kind of
The whole sport is just professional eating disorders, though, so it makes sense.
Yeah, so I had this meme that was like, bodybuilding is it just powerlifting with an eating disorder, and it's kind of true. I have to post that. Hang on, let me just share my screen. Let's look at the study together. All right.
Did you see the kid on TikTok that blends all of his meals? Like it's like chicken, rice, broccoli with some broth. Oh my god, that's terrible. It all. He's like, this is delicious, dude. And I'm like, that's an eating disorder.
That's disgusting. Holy shit.
Okay, hang on. The paper is the VRIM 2018. Is there any relationship between body image perception, eating disorders, and muscle dysmorphic disorders in male bodybuilders? I'm looking for the specific percentage, but they found that basically, obviously, like your fat-free mass was related to how much body dysmorphia you had. But what was the prevalence of?
So FFMI is directly related to eating disorders, essentially. Like also determined to,
Okay, wait. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you can also potentially determine if somebody is natty or not with the FFMI, but also if they have an eating disorder.
Yeah, that's true. Someone had a comment about this regarding Liver King. They said that like if we look at people before steroids were invented, like Liver King would be like twice as muscular as the best natural bodybuilder ever. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure that's true. That's no way this guy's lying. But yeah, this is the funny stat. Well, funny, kind of dark actually. Of the 120 bodybuilders, 81, so 67.5% at EAT 40 scores above its cutoff points, indicating that potentially clinical levels of eating pathology. So, basically, like roughly 68% of people who do bodybuilding, according to this paper, might have eating disorders.
So I'm not familiar with the test though, so I feel like it could definitely be biased to show for eating disorders amongst bodybuilders, just because like they tend to eat the same shit, all the time.
Yeah.
But it's a choice for a lot of them. I'm sure a lot of them do have some sort of eating disorder, but like, you know what I mean?
That's a really good point. Well, me and Ellie will probably do a separate post on this, and I'll say it is actually lower than, if I recall, than dancers. So we'll also talk about this in the other post, but like ballerinas, I think it's something like it's above 60%. It's pretty awful. And I like to say that bodybuilding is also kind of like, it's kind of like cosplaying what it's like to be a woman in the eyes of society. It's like you're always judging, oh, I'm so fat. Oh man, I have to be big. Oh, that guy's like, he's got bigger pecs than me. He's like, his boobs are bigger. But it's like you're like choosing to do that to yourself, which I find very interesting. And yeah. So, all right, let's move on. I'll just stop sharing this part. Okay. Do you guys want to watch the video?
Yeah.
Yeah. So JP had a video prep for us, which looks really interesting. Let's look at it.
Sure. Yeah.
Hang on. And then how do I do live? Okay.
I am 22 years old. I've had about 50 procedures, $8,000, $8,500. Pec implants cost another $8,000. In my butt, that costs about $5,000. I'm looking at about $75,000.
This is yet another guy who has spent tens of thousands of dollars to look like he has muscles when he could have achieved the same or better results with very moderate training, and he probably wouldn't even need to diet at all. I think the temptation of cosmetic surgeries is definitely increasing, with basically every celebrity getting something done, but when it comes to muscle, it's probably easier, cheaper, healthier, less painful, and will look better if you just work out a few times a week than it would be to get all of these surgeries. So if you're planning on getting these muscle implants, try working out twice a week and you will probably get similar results. In the end, as long as you're not hurting anyone, do what you want. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Yeah, first of all, I think the guy analyzing the video, I would generally hear what he said. But yeah, that's nuts, honestly. Have you ever trained people that have had like plastic surgery for their muscles?
Nothing for the muscles, but I think it's hilarious. Like if you actually look at, so he has an Instagram. If you look at that kid's page, like he literally looks like someone who's been in the gym for maybe like 2 or 3 months. I think I looked like him before I really started lifting, because I was a naturally skinny, like lean kid. And the funny thing is, I actually looked at his Instagram and somebody commented that on one of his posts, and he said, "Honey, I've been in the gym. I've been in the steam room every single day." And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, you just sit in the sauna and expect to grow? Or like, I don't really get it. But I mean, something's going on up there.
Was that not a comment about like the stereotype of saunas being for gay people?
That was him replying to like one of the comments.
Oh.
Like, yeah,
okay,
saying that he's
so
in the gym, like in the steam room or something. I was like, what it? So you just say you don't train, dude. Like,
he basically revealed that he has very cursory knowledge of working out.
The steam inflates or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been doing all the quad curls and the hamstring extensions. Yeah, I'm going really hard. Okay. Elliot, you want to go for a question or I go for a question?
Yeah, I'll do one. You kind of alluded to this when you were talking about your goal shift. So I assume I kind of already know the answer, but how many calories or meals are you currently eating daily right now? And what does your supplement routine consist of, if anything?
So right now I'm not tracking really whatsoever. I did roughly track just to get an idea of like where I was at, and I would estimate I'm probably eating anywhere from like on average probably around like 2,500 to like 3,000 calories. But with the cardio I'm doing, I mean, I'm running around like 12 to 15 miles a week right now, which is a lot more than I was doing when I was bodybuilding, like activity wise throughout the week. So I'm burning a lot more calories. So I've essentially lost weight going from like 205 down to like 181 point something this morning. Just from the extra cardio and eating less. But I think it was mostly just cutting out like my nightly munchies and replacing that with just a bunch of fruit. So yeah, I would imagine like mid 2000s to like upper 2000s on average. And then sup wise, I mean, I'm sponsored by Legion, so I pretty much just take everything they have in their lineup, because I'm like, it's free, and you know, why not? Because most of the stuff they have, like it's solid. They even have like all the studies on their website, like, you know, of course, like the fat burners and stuff, you could say some stuff about that, but like I'm taking the general health supplements, creatine, fish oil, the multi, you know, they have a magnesium, D3. And then I can't add this in because this is non-sponsored stuff, but you know, ubiquinol. What else am I taking? Red yeast rice. There's one more. L-theanine.
Okay, yeah, it's a solid stack. That's good. That's awesome.
All right. Completely unrelated question. So for me, I could say like one of the most frustrating things about my work, and I think Elliot has alluded to that in the past as well, is that like our clients come to us and they have like all these preconceived ideas, which are sometimes I think really harmful to them or their goals at least. As a coach, what would you say is like, if you could like, you know, grab all the people that like to work out and just erase like one idea that you find is like unhelpful, or any idea for other reasons. If it's for mischievous reasons, you can do that too. It's your answer. What would it be? Like, what would you change in people's mind?
I think that the biggest thing that I would change, and something that I try and instill with all my clients, is that whatever you're doing fitness wise doesn't have to suck. Like, a lot of people come in with the expectation that like whatever workout I'm going to give them like is going to be really terrible and they're not going to like it. But I tell them, like, if you really don't like this, like, we can do some other stuff. Because at the end of the day, this is something that I want you to be able to take home with you. Like, even after we stop working together, like, are you going to keep doing this if I wasn't here forcing you? If the answer is no, then we should probably change something about it. And if the thing is like they just don't like exercising whatsoever, like any form of it, of course they're gonna have to suck it up and do something. But generally speaking, like, you can find something that person enjoys. Like, even if it's not weightlifting, like, all right, let's go on a walk or something, get on a bike, dude. Like, we can do something.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I commonly say to my patients, like, the best exercise is the one that's being done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think Elliot has a really good question about PEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this is something that I'm probably going to do a post on, because I think that this is kind of a contentious topic, and I don't know necessarily if the paradigm shift has been helping the younger generation of lifters. But do you think that the push to be honest about PEDs is helping to deter people away from steroids? Or do you think that it's actually just encouraging the quote unquote safer use of exogenous hormones?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I literally just had this conversation with a coaching buddy of mine. I think that no matter what you do, if you talk about PEDs openly online and you are somebody of credit, that even if you tell people not to do it, they're going to look at that, turn around and go, well, he found a good enough reason to do it. So, you know what I mean? It's definitely like a double-edged sword. Like, you want to be open and honest, but also, like, if you're a credible, knowledgeable person, and you're open about taking PEDs, like, you know, for like John Jewett, for example, very open about it, gives like a very nuanced perspective on taking PEDs. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not saying, you know, he's doing anything wrong, but of course there's going to be people saying, well, he's so smart and he's doing them. So I think that's just one example of, it's not always ideal. I think it is good to be honest, but I would say the people who are just saying they're natural, like very adamant about being natural, while being on PEDs, are a problem. I don't think you should do that. Like, if you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. I think that's kind of like best case scenario for a lot of people. But yeah, I do think that it is likely encouraging people to do so. Not to the same degree as the people who are openly saying, yeah, steroids are the best, there's nothing wrong with it. Like some people that come to mind, but yeah, I do think it is problematic, especially for like young, impressionable people who constantly see it like on a daily basis, like on social media. It's very normalized at this point.
Yeah. I'll add to that. So I'm friends with, I don't know if you guys know Ryan Marino.
No, I don't think so.
He's the doctor they get on the news to talk about opiate overdoses. He's like one of the big experts about that. And from what I can gather from following him, and again, we'll probably have him on to correct that. And we probably ask the steroids question, because it is a very difficult question. I think a contentious and interesting one. But if you look at opiates, I think what's happened is, like, you know, with stuff like supervised injection sites, critics will say that it has not reduced the number of overdoses. But what you'll see is that there's been like zero lethal overdoses at the sites. So if people use them, it's like, to me, the way I'd explain it is that, you know, with the steroids, maybe it is increasing the number of people that are doing it, but I will say it is probably making people more intelligent about it. Like, before, it was just, I'm just going to do it, fuck it. Now it's like, there's people that I know in my close circle who are like, I'm doing it, you know, I was supervised with the doctor, I'm getting my blood work done a lot. So at least they're being smart about doing it, even though it might not be the best life decision, I'd say, from my selfish perspective, I guess. If you're a bodybuilder, I completely understand, and a lot of athletes are sacrificing their body and they don't give a shit and they don't get judged either. And a lot of them are also on steroids, and people will say, like, yeah, they're making millions of dollars. Of course, it might be a different discussion if you're a guy at a public gym and people don't even know that you work out and you're on like copious amounts of steroids. Then you might need to reconsider your like what you're doing with your life. Yeah.
If you go on like Reddit steroids, I haven't gone on there in a long time, but it's kind of like a meme page sometimes, where it'll be like a dude who's running, you know, 2-3 grams of gear, and you can't even tell he's on. And I'm just like, dude, that's insane.
Which is honestly how most guys look, to be honest with you. Like if you know guys who take a lot of PEDs.
Yeah, I'd even go further. I live in the gay community, so when I go to the gym, there's like we were talking about, like men having pressures that are usually brought to women in bodybuilding. It is very similar in the gay community from what I see from my friends, and it's very interesting because there's a lot of like older guys doing steroids because they just want to stay young and like keep up with the young guys, because in that community they're very open. Like there'll be a lot of like older guys with younger guys, like completely different body types together. So there's a very, very big pressure to remain fit longer. And you don't have the pressure of kids. It's like, yeah, like what if I die? Like, you know, of course I don't want to die, but it's not like I have kids at home and they have less, I guess, responsibilities in a lot of cases and like more opportunities to do it and more pressure to do it, I'd say. So I see a lot of cases where I'm like, why? In my mind, I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? This is not great. And then there's others where it's like, yeah, you're huge. Like I can't say anything. And I'm not saying if you get big on steroids, it means you made a good decision. I'm just saying there's just like multiple ways to look at the question. And I also want to mention people like Dr. Mike Israetel. I think what he's doing is very interesting because from what I've heard, whenever he talks about steroids, he talks about, he's like, yeah, I've taken it, so now I kind of have to keep doing it, if that makes sense. Because it's like if he stops, and I might be getting this wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, Elliot, but he's been very open about saying like don't do steroids, but he's still doing it. And if he stopped, he probably like his testosterone levels will plummet from all the years he's been doing it, right?
Quick fact check. It actually wasn't Dr. Mike Israetel who made this specific point. Alexi told me he was getting confused with a different influencer. But the point still remains. If you take steroids and come off them, your testosterone levels can severely drop. It just wasn't Dr. Mike Israetel who said that in a video. So
I feel like these guys are probably the ones that will have the most effective voice at deterring people from doing it. Because it's like, yeah, I'm still doing it because I can't get off of it.
I think it's the distinction though between like taking steroids and taking TRT. Because it's definitely an important distinction to make. Because he could stop taking steroids and just do TRT and be like a normal person essentially. So it's like a choice to continue blasting, which anything over like a physiological level is going to be detrimental to your health.
That's a good point. Yeah, he's still blasting.
So, yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, you can say that. And like, I'm cool with Mike and Jared and all them. Like they're all the homies, but still, and I don't want to like misquote them either. So.
Yeah. I think like the reality is that, especially like even in the gym that I go to, and I used to work at a testosterone replacement therapy center. So I know guys who would come from other centers, like we would take them off of their egregious doses, but guys who would come into us looking for TRT and to basically get themselves sorted because we did a little bit more extensive testing than the local TRT clinics, they would come in at doses of like 500 milligrams per week or 850 milligrams per week. And like, that's not a therapeutic dose. You're just doing a cycle at that point.
They would come in taking those doses from other clinics, like that was prescribed to them?
Yeah, so they were either abusing the steroids from like these mail-in clinics, so they would go to like a virtual clinic and then just pin way too much, and then their hormone levels would just be through the roof when we actually did our own tests, and then we would bring them down to a physiological level. But they would come in with either just underground lab use or just abusing the prescribed testosterone that they got from their online clinicians.
Okay, so we're running out of time, so I'll just ask one question to JPG. But first of all, JPG, sorry, I'm always confusing them because in French, G is J, whatever. But I do have one of those segments, so I'm going to preview a segment we want to do. It's called Influencers That Don't Exist. So I had one that's kind of related to this. This is a guy, his name is Gregory Fork. His handle is Hormone All. And he's a biohacker who knows that hormones are governed by feedback reactions. So if you take more testosterone, your estrogen is also going to shoot up. It's like a feedback loop and they all like influence each other. So what he figured out is he's just going to take all the hormones in equal doses. So he just has more of all the hormones and he just looks like he's progressively starting to look like less and less human. He's like a gigantic monster. So yeah, I just thought that was like a funny character. I'll probably put some images there to illustrate what it looks like. I'll probably ask like ChatGPT to come up with something.
I was gonna say you need to get somebody to like animate this part.
Yeah, that's the thing. We'll probably ask your editor. So Dylan, you animate this. You figured that out. We pay you for this.
That'd be funny.
And yeah, I guess last question, and that's the most important one, is what would you rate as your top 3 animes, and if it is too hard, what you can do is you can do top 3 all time, and then what's your current anime that you're rotating.
All right. So I actually wrote this down just because I didn't want to. So I would say top anime, just based on like the number of times I've watched it through, like in its entirety, is probably Hunter x Hunter.
Nice.
That one
Man
just,
of
like,
culture.
It's just like a good, like all around feel good anime, great fight scenes. And then I think, like, even though I've only watched it through a couple times, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood has to be on my list, just because that was like the first like real anime that I watched. Like the one that my like buddy introduced me to, because I was at that point in college, like freshman year, and I'd never really watched anime, and I thought it was still like a nerdy thing because it wasn't like cool back then. So I was like one of those pioneers that made it, cool.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah. I took that hit for y'all. So that. But then I think the third one kind of is like a rotating list of really whatever I'm watching at the time. So I just have a bunch here. I'm just going to throw them all out. So Frieren, Faraway Paladin, Hell's Paradise, Vinland Saga, Platinum End, Fire Force, Attack on Titan, Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic, and Claymore. Those are just some that I've watched in the last like few months.
Yeah.
That I thought were solid animes, and there's a few in there that I feel like aren't super mainstream. Claymore, I will say, is a really solid anime, and I'm upset that there's no continuation of that. It's essentially about these like paladin people who end up becoming like demons the longer that they're like these paladins. So they end up having to like fight themselves, like their own people. It's really interesting, but yeah, there's no continuation, so you'll be upset if you watch it because there's
the manga's so good too. The art in Claymore is awesome.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
I need to get the manga.
That's awesome. It has nothing to do with the video game, right?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I
The
don't know
one
if
with the
this
huge
video- I didn't know there was a
Claymore.
Claymore video game.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. We'll probably make a list of these. So we're gonna have to go. On all platforms as at Nobullshitphysio. JP, where can people find you?
JPGCoaching everywhere.
Yeah, if you're looking for a good online coach and Elliot is not available, just go see JP. I've heard good feedback from everyone and I do send people to him. So, Elliot, when can people find you?
I'm at the Rehab Cairo on all platforms.
All right. This was the fact checked. You guys have a good one. Peace out.
See you guys.
Peace.